that's what it's all about today. Can't wait to jump into this topic with you. And it's something that we all seen. We all been tempted once in a while. And it's all about cutting corners. So that's today's podcast. We're going to be talking about cutting corners. What's the real cost of cutting corners? And what's so interesting is that this is going to apply to apprentices. It's going to apply to journey levels. Even if you're deciding to become a contractor, aspiring contractors, avoid the pitfalls, or is it worth it? We're going to find out today what's going to happen when you cut corners. You ever been on a job site and you see a contractor say, I never seen this in 30 years? That's typically because he's speaking not only that he's the alpha, the omega, but also it's because he's also recognizing that somebody did hack work. And there's so many of us on Instagram, social media. If you just go on social media, you're going to see people talk about the hack work or the hack jobs that they're seeing online. So what's something we can do about it? We all know it. We all see it. We all don't like it. So what are we going to do to prevent it? Well, the one way of preventing this is to be aware that this can happen. How can it happen? We understand there's tempting moments. Let's jump into that. So for some people, when they go into contracting or individuals on a job site, if you can recall, I remember the days when I first started an electrical apprenticeship down in New York City in Queens. We're tackling some work, and it seemed like every time I messed up, every time I got chewed out myself, this is honestly, every time I got chewed out myself, it was because I was doing something I shouldn't have been doing. I either was pressured, I either was rushed, I either was tired, and I just didn't want to go do a second trip to get that tool, a second trip to verify that circuit, a second trip to go get some help, a second trip just to get another thing apart. And guess what? That's where you start sitting and you're like, let me just do this hot. And let me just make one hole. And let me just cut this. Let me just do this. And then usually right after, that's when it happens. That's when you're stuck with the decision, and it's usually for the bad. True or not, every time you do something, or the moments when I come into doing something, and I'm over here thinking, oh, I can get away with this, those are the times I always get bitten. I don't know about you. I want to know what you guys are thinking. I always get bitten when I decide to do something shady. I always get exposed, either directly or a day or two later, the homeowner calls and they're saying, hey, I need you to come back. I need you to tackle this. So with all that being said, I recognized early on that there's a cost to cutting corners, but everybody doesn't look at the cost the same as you. And the same applies in business. Everybody has these costs that's associated with the task, but nobody really sits down, calculates what that task is for you. And if you guys know me already, I'm a numbers guy. So I like to put it down onto paper to see what is data. What is the data backing up cutting corners? Well, when I started jumping onto it, we already know the number one data that after 5 years or within 5 years, more than 53% of companies, contractors are going to go out of business. It's 50 to 63% depending on where you are at. But nationally, that's the age. So now that we know 50% to 60% of you guys are going to close down shop within the first 5 years, we recognize that 20% of those, so out of the half, 20% of those are closing down shop due to reworks needing. In other sense, where in the beginning, when we start with a clean slate, if we tackle a job, we complete a job, we close out a job, we move on from the job. If we got to come back to resolve something, it's usually insured. It's usually backed by our workers' guarantee, a year, whatever you guys as a contractor will offer to a homeowner. But for the most part, when you finish a job, it's closed down, forget, and move on. A rework is completely different. A rework is when you've done something wrong or the initial project, the initial service that you promised to offer isn't completed, or it's completed to such a bad standard that you have to come back to fix it to at least make it minimum, to meet the minimum. So many contractors that we're seeing throughout the US is having problems when it comes to reworks. How does rework become a situation? How does rework become an issue for you, for apprentices coming in? It's because they're getting tempted to cut corners. If you show up every day, if you do 100% of your work, if you do 100%, you have nothing to worry about. Usually the issues come from or stem from you cutting corners. So what can you do? What can I do to avoid cutting corners? Well, a lot of cutting corners, we see that's an emotional decision. It's based off of how you're feeling in the moment. You don't want to make the extra trip. You don't want to go grab the extra part. You don't want to grab that tool. You don't want to verify that circuit. So what do? We go live, baby. We're going live. You ever saw that? That meme with the news anchor where he's like, forget it, we're going live, we're going live. That's exactly what so many of us in the trades do. We basically just say, screw it, we're going live. So what's that going to lead to? 9 times out of 10, we all know what's going to happen. It's going to bite us. Once it bites us, it's game over. So now that we're going live, we cut corners. It now shows on us. That can now suck because 1, we have to fix it, but 2, now we're setting a reputation, we're setting new habits for us. And we, once again, as we talked about, habits, we have to be careful with those because once you start a habit and a routine, it becomes part of who you are as a tradesperson. Once you become and have these bad habits, it takes so much more work to undo a bad habit than just learn from the beginning. You ever heard the expression where it takes 21 days for something new actions, new efforts to become a habit? So it takes 21 days to undo a habit. Sometimes it's a lifetime. There's individuals who are saying, once again, contracting, I've been doing this for 30 years. For 30 years, they've been doing something a specific way and they haven't changed. So keep that in mind. You can have a bad habit for the lifetime, but to start a new habit puts it into perspective. You just need 21 days. And there's a whole story, a segment that we can talk about where they came up with 21 days. It's actually a nice experiment. I can't wait to share that with you guys. But once again, so we sleep poorly, we're lazy, we don't have the energy. So it's a personal decision. All of that we can control. That leads to wanting to cut a corner because we don't have the energy, we don't have the capacity, we don't have the emotion, we're not thinking clear just to take ownership of the task. Once again, accountable versus accountability. But then that leads to a ripple effect because it's not just we messed up on that outlet or a cutting corners is, hey, let me work on it live. Maybe it popped the circuit. We didn't verify the circuit. We decide to drive home. Next thing you know, homeowner calls us, hey, the circuit breaker's not turned back on. We have to drive all the way back. How many of you have been there? I want to know how many of you have been there where you finished a job, you did it to the best of your ability, you jump into the car, you start driving home. Let's say it's 6, 7, 8 o'clock, sometimes at night. You drive home, homeowner calls you, the power's not on. Why? Because you forgot to turn on the breaker. How many of us have been there where they asked you, hey, always check the breaker? We've all had that talk. We've all been there ourselves. So why did we forget? Because that one moment we decided to not check, we lift, and guess what happens? It's the breaker. We got to come back. Now, if it's something on that small scale, everyone's fine with it. We can move on. Homeowner's just thankful that you came, you responded, But what happens when that one bad habit leads to a ripple effect in the sense where, let's say you didn't care. Now you go home, screw that, I'll go back first thing tomorrow morning. All of these things now become a ripple effect. It's a downward spiral. You have bad habits, you sleep bad, you cut corners, you don't care about the customer, you start ignoring phone calls. What starts happening? You go to a downward spiral. That's something that we want to avoid and make sure that never happens. So what's something that we can do to make sure that doesn't happen? Well, just the opposite. Let's take full approach on our rest, full approach on what we eat, full approach on our energy to make sure that we're giving the best service, best quality for the end user, for our customers. Or remember, apply all this information if you're an apprentice. What's also so interesting about this is in the industry, as it continues to grow, we're finding that 52% of new work coming in is based off rework needed and or service work. So more than half of contractors out there are tackling service-based work because that's all a form of rework. Yes, is it possible that some of these jobs are just old? Yes. But a lot of the times when we come into a job, we're saying, who the heck did this before us? We're reworking someone else's work that now is our responsibility. So that's something we can keep in mind. What I also love about that is that there's a genuine cost to this. So if we learn from the beginning that 50% of these businesses are going out of business because of reworks. What's a rework? We recognize they cut corners, they did shoddy work, they have to keep coming back, but they keep taking in more jobs. So the funnel that they have keeps filling up, but the jobs that they're handling are failing. So now you have jobs coming in, jobs that are failing piling up. People tend to like start hiring, going on a hiring frenzy to start tackling that, but now you have extra cost. So now you are hiring full-time employees who before you say is an investment, it's actually a cost because you're sending them to do reworks, which reworks are not bringing you money. So all of this you have to start putting into perspective. So what's the actual cost of reworks? Employees, insurance, payroll, the cost of going back to a job that's already been paid out that you have to service now, the cost of a bad reputation within the industry. All of this stuff starts stacking against you as an apprentice, as a licensed contractor. All of these things are something that you have to take into account. So what is the point of this entire lesson? For today, when we talk about reworks, when we talk about service calls, when we talk about cutting corners, I just want you to start the day off to understand that cutting corners is not just about doing what's right the first time. It's not about pride. It's not about the work itself. It's about the reputation that you are developing in the industry. And why is that so important? Because here we want to make sure that we're building builders, most importantly, building leaders. Because here in the skilled trades, we need more builders, we need more leaders, and I can't wait to see you guys on the next video.